Quest 3 has been out just over a week, and I've been using it a little bit longer than that. And I have some additional thoughts I felt I needed to share after spending a lot more time with this device. First off, I'm still really enjoying the Quest 3, specifically the form factor and that additional power boost in some specific games. Speaking of games, before I get into some hardware things that I've discovered after a lot more testing, the games on the Quest 3 that take advantage of what it's offering are doing amazing things. But we're also getting some new games like NFL Pro Era 2, which I've got a full video coming out on Sunday for. And as a little preview to that video, I played that game and I actually adjusted the IPD slider in the headset because things didn't look crisp in the headset. One side effect I've noticed is that games that aren't taking advantage of what the Quest 3 offers sometimes can actually look worse on the Quest 3 than on the Quest 2. And I'm assuming that's because of the new resolution of the panel and the clarity of the lenses. NFL Pro Era 2 is a good example of that. The game itself looks just slightly out of focus and not as crisp as I'm used to seeing a lot of games on Quest 3, including some games that haven't been updated. Now, that's probably because the game was not updated for the Quest 3 as of yet, and probably because the game has so much going on. They already were using lower resolution textures, and the Quest 2 doesn't show that as much as a Quest 3 does. That doesn't necessarily mean that games are bad or they look bad, just that it's more noticeable on the Quest 3 when a game is lower resolution or uses lower resolution textures. On the other hand, the games that are getting updates are looking fresh and crisp, and the games that already looked great on Quest 2 are looking great on Quest 3 because of that just natural resolution bump. You can also go into side quest if you've got side loading enabled, and I'll do a full video on how to do all of that very soon for your Quest 3 and actually bump the resolution up for everything in headset. It adds a massive amount of clarity to everything you play on the Quest 3. Plus, you can actually enable 120 hertz for everything. It's an experimental feature, so you can play some of the bigger games, including games like Resident Evil at 120 frames per second, which is really cool. 120 frames per second does tank the battery life, and that's the first hardware thing I want to talk about, the battery. So in my initial testing, I did a lot of testing and I ran the battery out several times, and it was around 2 to 2.5 hours on average, sometimes 3 depending on what I was doing. A trend I've noticed online and in my headset is the battery life of the Quest 3 is dramatically less dependent on what you're doing, especially if you're using mixed reality. It kills that battery in like an hour and a half max, and some games that use a lot of power do the same thing as well. Some people are even getting between an hour and an hour and a half, and I've actually run my battery out in an hour and 20 minutes once. Doing mixed reality stuff, that depth sensor and all the camera array and everything really tanks the battery life. No surprise really based on the cooling and the power and just everything that's going on in the headset, but it is an unfortunate side effect of all of that new technology. We're getting lower battery life. It's actually draining to the point where some people are plugging their headset into a power source or into a PC while playing, and it's still drawing enough power to kill the device. Yes, it extends the battery life, but it doesn't stop it from dying altogether like it used to with the Quest 2. Battery straps, I have not gotten one to test. I've heard decent things about some of the battery straps, that it does extend the battery life significantly. The Quest 3 might be a device that really requires a battery strap, but I'll do a lot more testing once I actually get a battery strap in hand to see how much difference it actually makes. So battery life has been a big flag or issue for a lot of people, but if you keep that in mind and you have a battery strap, then you probably will be okay. Let me know in the comments, though, if you have a battery strap and if it's helping with longer gameplay sessions. Speaking of the strap, I mentioned the strap in my initial review video that I actually didn't mind it. Well, after several days of playing a lot with that original strap, I decided I don't like it anymore. It's not bad if you have to use it, but having switched it out for the Elite strap, just the regular one with no battery, I much prefer this strap over the standard strap, and I can't wait to get the Kiwi strap in once it's out. But right now, the Elite strap is doing a great job. It is much thicker up in this area here, by the way, so we shouldn't have breakage like we did with the original Elite strap, but that remains to be seen still. Also, let's talk about the facial interface. I do have a different color here. I love the new colors, and I do love that they're adjustable, but holy crap, I can't wait to get a new facial interface. This isn't bad. It's better than the Quest 2, but it's still not great for long gaming sessions where the headset could move or if you're sweating. So in my opinion, I did a video on the Quest 2 of the 2 must-have accessories, and I still think that holds true after a longer time with the headset. I think it still needs a strap, and it still needs a facial interface for the Quest 3, and those are must-haves if you're going to enjoy this headset for long periods of time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm having a blast with this headset, but it's definitely not perfect. In fact, I've run into some issues with the depth sensor and it scanning my room in. At first, it worked beautifully, and it still works for the most part, but I have to keep rescanning my room because for some reason, it just comes off center. The ceiling goes up way too high, so the floor comes around my knees, or the floor height drops down, so the ceiling is dropping down to my head, and I have to redo things for mixed reality. It doesn't happen every time, but it does happen from time to time, and it's a massive pain in the butt when you're playing mixed reality because nothing's to scale or in the right spot. Speaking of mixed reality, one thing I ran into, and I saw some more people talking about it that made me test it, is the Guardian system. So it was released that a while back, the Guardian system would actually be shut off once mixed reality was enabled because you can see your environment and you're not going to punch your wall if you can see it, generally speaking, or run into an animal. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. So when you have a Guardian set up, like in a big room like the room I have right now, it's too big for a full-size Guardian. So I could create a Guardian, but it won't fill the whole room. And if I go into mixed reality and have a Guardian that is in this room, I can walk past the Guardian out of my mixed reality experience and it'll tell me to return to the experience. And that's with my room being scanned in entirely and a 3D mesh done in the headset. So I have a door over there, for instance, that's in the 3D mesh and it knows there's a door there, but my Guardian doesn't go that far. So the creatures, for instance, could be coming through my door over there and I can shoot them, but I can't walk to it because my Guardian stops me from doing that. Hopefully that'll be fixed. I don't see a reason for there being a Guardian system while the cameras are on, so it really should just be disabled altogether, at least in mixed reality. And if you disable it, I thought it worked because I thought I had it working, but if you disable the Guardian in the developer tools, it actually stops the cameras from seeing mixed reality, so you can't even do mixed reality. It doesn't really matter in small rooms where you're going to play mixed reality where your Guardian can be bigger or the same size, but in larger spaces, it's a pain in the butt. Speaking of a pain in the butt, let's talk about the Quest 3's microphone. One thing I didn't get a chance to do a lot of was multiplayer before doing my initial impressions review. And having played with the Quest 3 a lot more now, including some multiplayer sessions, the Quest 3's microphone isn't up to par for what the Quest 2 had. I believe the Quest 2's microphone is actually significantly better than the Quest 3 from what I've heard. It's not so much that the quality is bad, it's that it's much more susceptible to breaths and pops from your talking. And I don't know why that is, where the microphone was placed. It was placed somewhere new. But for some reason, when you're talking with someone that has a Quest 3, you'll tend to notice, at least in my experience, a lot more breathy pops and hisses based on the air coming out of their mouth. The quality isn't necessarily so much different than the Quest 2 in what I've heard so much as it just doesn't sound good because of the positioning of the microphone. It could be because it's so much closer to your face. Maybe the microphone for the Quest 2 is farther away because of the size of it. I don't know what it is, but in my opinion, it's not as good as the Quest 2 microphone, which is unfortunate considering it's a more expensive upgraded device in pretty much every other way. Well, those are the current thoughts that I have about the Quest 3. I'm still very much enjoying the headset, and I love what it's bringing to VR and the power that it has, and the visual clarity, and the lenses, and the resolution bump. But there are some negatives I'm slowly starting to see more of. Not game-changing ones that'll stop someone from buying it necessarily, unless the battery is a deal killer for you and you can't afford a battery strap. That actually could stop someone from buying a Quest 3, potentially, if they don't want that battery around so quickly. But the things like the issues with the mixed reality and the depth sensor, I'm sure can be fixed with software patches. What is your experience after a week with it if you have the device? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Are you glad you bought it? Are you going to return it? Is it just something that irks you about the device that you wish was different? Please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe to stay subscribed for all things Quest 3, and happy questing.